That sounds like Chris.
Hey, guys.
Excellent. All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Roberts and Tony Zurovec, give them a hand. I also want to preface this a little bit with this is very off the cuff. We basically put together a slideshow for Chris and Tony to talk about using brand new assets. Some of this stuff just came in as soon as yesterday. So they're going to be talking off the cuff as they go over this. It's a bit of review and a bit of brand new stuff.
You have the clicker?
There's a clicker here somewhere.
There it is. All right. Hello, everyone. How are we doing tonight? Good? All right. Hope you all had a few drinks and settled in for the evening.
Hopefully they had a lot of drinks.
Does the clicker
Hopefully
work?
they had a lot of drinks.
Yeah. What is a town hall, Jason? You wrote this. What is it?
I did. A town hall's a peek behind the curtain. Here, I'll do this.
Oh, there you go.
It's an intimate look at our plans and the processes used to make an ambitious game for you, our backers.
So I said it at the top of our panels today, but probably not everyone was there. But this is actually quite different than some of the other reveals that we've done where we've actually had a polished demo, because that's all going to happen in March when we sort of show the actual planet side in operation and we show the FPS module, which we're going to be releasing that and the planet side at the end of March, beginning of April. But we thought for this PAX South event, in the spirit of the fact that we sort of share everything that we would sort of share, sort of stuff that's still early in development, work in progress, and kind of sort of you can sort of have that peek behind the curtain. I think I said lift my skirt up earlier, which some people thought was fun, and then I said, and we weren't really polished, and then someone else thought that was funny too. So, but the idea is that this is the sort of stuff that maybe you would have seen in a jump point when we look back on the early stages and you see the work in progress stuff, but instead of after the fact, after you've seen the finished article, it's before you've seen the finished article, because the article isn't finished yet. And
Chris,
so we're just sort of showing you kind of where we're at and sort of the things that we're dealing with and the things that we're thinking about and the approaches we're taking to be sort of an even more raw, I guess, connected experience with you guys. So there you are. That's my sort of header.
And Chris, just so you know, you got 75 slides and 55 minutes, so you can go as long or as fast as you want on these slides.
Everybody knows I'm not quick.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm out of here.
It's basically the foyer in Terra Tower, which we're not actually showing you today. But when you land on Terra, there's this beautiful, huge, monumental tower that is. I don't know how tall. Where is Skelton? Skelton, is he? I saw him hiding behind the back. There he is. How tall is Terra Tower?
About that tall. It's like, I think it's 3 kilometers tall.
So 3 kilometers tall. And when you actually get in to play it in the game, just kind of, we haven't shown you today because we like to sort of tell you and tease you a bit. But
it is enormous.
It is enormous, and there is this beautiful glass elevator that lets you go up the whole tower and see the enormity of Terra, which is cool. So anyway, that was it. That's here we go. Oops. God. Rookie. We're back. Okay. Panel recap. We want to do any recap on this? Or?
Well, the basics are, so these are the panels that we recorded earlier today. They have all been recorded and should be available on the website for you to review, probably later today.
Yeah, and I think, we sort of talked about some of the aspects of the game. We didn't actually get to all of them, so I think one of the things that we missed was the pirating aspect. We had a whole question and answer on the pirate stuff, but there's actually a lot of thought gone into the level of what you can do when you're a pirate. Although I was asked a question earlier, which was a very good one, which was basically, okay, who controls the currency in our universe? So if it is the UEE, what does a pirate buy or sell things in if they're wanted?
If a pirate's wanted, just because they're wanted, they can still use the currency. Just like,
So they're not blocked on it. I'm just saying that was the question.
No, I think you should still
Because in the US, if you're a wanted terrorist, they shut your accounts down and you can't use anything.
And yet a terrorist can still go to the local 7-Eleven with dollars and transact perfectly fine. You'll have a...
Fight! All right, well, we'll gloss over that anyway.
If Bitcoin is still around, you will have an anonymous currency.
Molly, anyway, the question asked me, I thought it was a good question. I'm teasing Tony. We'll figure out the best answer for it. But my guess is that you will sort of detach the currency and the transactional process of that away from any government, because it has to be also something that you can trade between races.
No, what I would prefer to see is basically your transactions on stolen, on things that have been stolen. It's limited by where you can sell as opposed to the currency in which you're going to conduct that transaction. You shouldn't be able to go to the TDD on ArcCorp and actually unload all of your stolen material. You should have to actually traipse 2 systems over, find a less reputable, space station or planet where they're much less, concerned with, law and rules and regulations, and that's where you would actually unload that type of stuff.
So I think on our side, we owe you, like one of the things we've committed to do is having more in-depth sort of design features and posts on our website. So one of the ones that I think we should do is a piracy one. We've got a few other ones like mining that will come up, so we will give you those guys. We won't drone on about that here.
Do you want me to talk a little bit about the art direction and design for Terra? I mean, if you
60
I
seconds.
don't have to. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, one thing of significance is, as we discussed on one of the panels earlier, it's like this is literally going to be, the big, epic, huge, all-encompassing, landing zone versus all of the other, initial,
I think
8 or
Terra is
9.
amazing, and I think it will be pretty impressive when we show it.
And
but we don't necessarily need to go into it.
And that will not be on the that will not be on the 313 social module demo, but it's possible, given the current schedule, that it could be on the on the deliverable after that.
That's
sometime
where you
around
would go
early
to.
summer.
Yeah. That is pretty amazing. Okay, if this thing still works, there you go. So Stasis in V1.1, and then I guess this is what we're going to talk about, which is kind of like 1.1 will be the social module and also including the FPS stuff. But we talked about it, multiplayer hangars, the mobi-glass contact list, the in-game chat, the planet-side environment you can go around and explore, shopping. So we can't necessarily buy stuff yet. That would probably be the next major milestone on the planet-side stuff, but you'll basically go around shops, be able to do the mobi-glass, see stats, how much it costs, all the rest of the stuff. And then also we're sort of moving to a sort of SimPod motif, which is kind of similar to the old Wing Commander, where we used to have there was an arcade machine in the pilot's rec room in Wing Commander.
And the environmental, effects will include, some very, very early stage, NPC AI. And so the whole idea is that when you're moving around, ArcCorp, in this social module demo, that you'll be able to get, a general sense of what the environment is going to look like as we start to, bring, the NPC population online.
And do we want to talk about that piece of art, Mark, maybe?
That is a jump point relay. So when you send things through a jump point, it has to go through this thing. And then basically what it does is it releases these pigeons that are like robotic, they're little robotic things that go through a jump point and come out the other side. And then there's another relay that grabs the pigeons from the other side and relays the message through a jump point. So that's what that thing is.
That's very cool. And that's Ted's work, right?
Yeah.
He's Ted, so one of our very talented concept artists in Austin, and has done some pretty awesome stuff. Okay, let's go to the next one. Our story begins at home, in the hangar. What the hell? Is that really what it is? Where the hell is Jason? He's run away. A story begins at home. Apparently, yes, there's boogie skins everywhere.
I think it was more that the people that had already bought one today, check your account. You will have, one of those, sitting there right now.
See?
Well, then,
I'm keeping you honest, Tony. Anyway, I think we talked about it earlier. I mean, we actually did the buggy skins. One was the sort of for everyone that came here. It's a sort of fun thing. But the cool thing about the buggy skins is that we now have sort of a paint tech that's in the engine. That the first parts of it were in 1.0, where you could see the different paint schemes on the different variants. and now we're at the point where we can apply them dynamically, so you can apply them dynamically to your buggies, and then one of the tasks on the big art backlog is to go through and do the various skins that we have back from the early campaign days, and then we'll sort of do additional sort of paint skins, and long term we're going to allow people to do their own skins, but we need to build a tool for that.
Customized
first.
license plates next.
Exactly. I guess these are the different ones, right?
Those are the other colors, yeah. That's the one you get if you bought a ticket. Thank you.
Okay, and I think we showed this earlier, but the concept is we're moving to a sim pod in the. There you go. There you go. Thank you, Jason. One of these?
They're building one.
Oh, you mean
now.
in real life, right? Yeah.
They're modeling one now at Behavior. I don't know if they're building any.
No. Someone actually builds it for with starters and.
I think that's scheduled for Q4. I'm not sure.
It does. It seems more efficient than cubicles.
Yeah. So anyway, the concept is that you're going to have a sim pod that you get into to do the FPS, and you do to Arena Commander. So I've showed that before. All right. We want to talk about this? This is the contact system. This is just sort of a UI markup, right?
Sure, yeah. So as mentioned in one of the panels earlier, basically in the short term, we're importing your contact list from the website. What we're going to wind up doing, probably the version after the social module, is we should actually have the full true friends, to where you extend an invitation to someone and they actually have to accept that, and then basically that bimodal link between the two of you is established. And so the relevance of the contact list, if we can go to the next slide, in regards to the social module, is that allows you, so this is a mock-up of actually being in your elevator, and what you're seeing down here at the bottom left are the destinations that you can go to. Area 18, which is a little, an alternative place other than the main, the main ArcCorp area, your hangar, and then you've got all of your friends, and so you would select one of your friends' hangar, and this would only be available after they've actually extended you an invitation, at which point you go into your elevator, you select that as your destination, and you're basically moved over to their hangar.
Go back. What happened there? Okay, so we're going. So we're going to talk about ArcCorp, which is where we are. Which is, I guess, we have the Planet ArcCorp, this is sort of a UI Moby glass projection, which we just put here to say this is where we are. ArcCorp landing zone. What do you do on planet-side landing zones, Tony?
In the short term, you're going to do, I hesitate to say shopping, because it's really more, window shopping would be more accurate. That's exactly right. You'll be able to look, but you will not be able to buy. You'll be able to, what this is basically showing you is a mock-up of the shopping interface.
An early mock-up of the interface.
Yeah.
Okay, so we carry on to the next one.
Smoking pants.
And here's one of the first shops. This is the one where Cubby Blast, you can buy all of your personal weapons, personal armor, grenades, ammunition, things of that sort.
And I'd like to stress that all these environments are just sort of the work in progress environments from Behavior. So they're still quite a ways from being fully finished and having all the atmospherics and.
Yeah, the only one that's at a relatively final state is really Dumper's Depot, and then the TDD to a closer degree.
Also, these guns will switch out according to supply and demand too, right? So if there's like a glut of guns, then obviously they'll be pushing more of that kind of gun, and it'll be like on sale. And if something happens and all of a sudden like the transport of guns didn't come in, then you'll see like missing, areas in the shop to insinuate that, oh, sorry. I mean,
what's available and the price will vary depending upon what's actually happening in the world around you.
So this is a early in-game prototype of the Moby Glass stuff.
to copy blast.
And that's the Moby Glass going into the augmented reality mode. So you can turn your AR mode and it'll sort of show you the indications of stuff. Yes, no, we are gonna do the HoloLens. You're not necessarily gonna do this anymore. We'll have a glass of contacts.
It's still in the mock-up, though.
And the concept with the Moby Glass is that there's going to be all these applications that can be loaded, and some of the applications will be context sensitive. Some of the applications will be things that you would buy and enhance your Moby Glass. So you'd use things for shopping or navigation or managing your friends or talking about missions and stuff.
One other thing, I guess, to mention, since we will have a lot of the shops, is we will not have nearly as diverse a selection of things to browse in all of the other shops, because there's a huge amount of props and stuff that need to be created for those. So we'll probably aim to have some representative things.
This is the cool bit.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. And that's when you get stabbed and robbed.
It might raise some privacy concerns depending on what you're browsing on your Moby Glass. Yeah, that was a third-person view.
I remember in the old days when people would just stare at their phones.
Yeah, there you go. So that's an early prototype of the Moby Glass. I think we're actually talking about having a combination of an augmented reality that you either have with a contact lens or glasses you would wear, and then if you're scrolling or doing the equivalent of web browsing, that would be sort of projected here. So you don't always have to bring your arm up to see stuff, which is sort of what our kind of plan is. Here's some screens. I don't know if you want to talk about them, guys.
Yeah, it's just early prototype stuff for how you're actually going to wind up manipulating your character's inventory. This is a constant work in progress, and it's evolving pretty quickly. This is actually already a bit outdated.
This is an excellent example of us lifting our skirt up.
Yeah, with the granny
This is
underwear.
not something we would normally show. Go ahead, Mark. And clearly that's a bowler, not a rancho, so I don't know what the dealer is.
Yeah.
Copy, paste.
Yeah, cowboy hat. Okay, so it's not all shopping, apparently.
Yeah, basically the customs area has been revised, new, some improved lighting and such. This is the customs area that we talked about earlier that you have to pass through. Regardless of whether you land at a public landing zone or in your own private hangar, you eventually have to go through customs before you're let into the landing zone proper. And that's where, for example, they would refuse admittance if you had a weapon on you and you had done something that had caused your license to carry for some period of time to have been revoked, at which point you'd have to go back to your ship or your hangar, stow your weapon away, and then they would actually allow you to proceed.
All right, let's try that again.
This is more of the finished level of quality that we're looking for in regards to the shops.
And you can see all the items actually on the racks there that you could buy. So there's some seats. I believe those are seats from Aurora. And next one, come on. Some medical unit. You may want to talk about this.
Yeah, this is basically serves a couple different purposes. One is when you actually die, out, off-site or even in the town. This is basically where you would wind up, respawning. This is also where you can buy a variety of, items related to, healing, defibrillators, stimulant packs, bandages, that sort of thing. And just some very early medic concept art, and the first iteration of some of the early stage models. Here's another one of the shops, which is the bar.
But he likes where you can drink.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That
That would suck if
You can even dance in there.
And that's actually something you'll see. Again, it's like the NPC AI will be, that you'll see with the social module release will be very early, but you will actually see people wandering around, sitting down, doing some basic manipulation of, interface control panels and such. That is a specific bar. I don't think G-Loc is a chain.
Yeah, I think it may be. It uses a standard bar set though.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a tier system set, so I mean, it can be reconfigured to kind of different bar, situations. But I mean, the thing about it is obviously, you're going to encounter different qualities of bars, I guess, as you go across the universe.
As you do in life.
Yeah, some are going to be super seedy.
Some are dive bars, some are sort of fancy high fluting
So
bars.
I mean, on our corp, that's kind of a little bit nicer bar than you may find on outskirts, full of scum and villainy. But but yeah, there's a lot of aspects of that bar that are going to be reused in various sets because it's all modular at the moment. This is an example of some of our early characters that have layer systems built into them. So the pants, for instance, you could take the pants off of this dude and put it on the last guy and swap it out if you want. See the granny underwear if you want. Yeah, but just the level of interactivity, that we want to achieve, we're starting down that path and starting to build characters with that in mind, with the granny underwear in mind.
Right. Yes, Astro Blada, which is
This is Astro Marta. It's a high-end ship dealer. I think this particular one is on Terra at the moment. But this is kind of like your kind of Porsche dealership, although they do sell a variety of different of ships, not just one specific type. But that's kind of once you go across the galaxy, you're not going to see just one kind of shop per se. You'll see a lot of different kinds of shops that sell ships per se, but there'll be different levels of quality, in the shops. That one just happens to be a more high-end one.
And you want to talk about this one, or?
Sure. Yeah, this is the Trade and Development Division, the TD office. This is where you would typically go to find the majority of available missions at a given landing zone. It's also where you would get a lot of economic information in regards to the pricing of various commodities and components and things of that sort.
And the final one's all the displays will be.
Yeah, the displays
a lot more
and
people. It's
the
still early
lighting.
stages.
Yeah, this one is definitely in the earlier stages.
None of these have really been lit particularly
No.
properly or anything, and they don't have atmospherics in. So, maybe the Dumpers Depot is the most advanced, but they're all still pretty early stages.
These are all about 70%.
I don't know, do you want to talk about this, or still early on the mission stuff on the Moby Glass?
Yeah, very early stage, concept, artwork for the interface for the missions. And basically, the idea here is just that we're getting very close to the point to where we would allow you to be able to undertake in the test universe, some simple missions, and that's going to lead to, the ability to basically, obtain loot.
So I think this is where showing our sort of cargo system and stuff up.
Yeah, this is basically the stasis field projector that keeps the objects within the cargo in place so that we don't need to worry about, basically we can fit things in according to a predefined, size as opposed to trying to fill every.
And the idea is the big containers that you can put things in, or bulk containers, all come with their own sort of, like whether it's a thruster or a sort of gravitational, like maglev kind of system. The idea is that you can plug into them and you can move them around. So you can sort of do, here's an example of on the one on the left, I believe, is just a container you can put stuff in. That's just a bulk in the middle, a container of liquids, and the right is a container of bulk sort of raw materials. It's kind of this setups here, and then, I guess we're missing some pictures or something. Did I go past it?
They had a few more cargo containers, but we had like 7. So if you
cut them.
They were basically making.
Anyway, so the idea is a little device that you plug in, and then you can move around the cargo container, the equivalent of zero buoyancy. So when you're in space or when you're down on the planet, once you like plug your little device into it, you can push it around or pull it around or move it around. So you're able to sort of arrange your cargo, load it, take it out. Also, when you're in space, you could EVA out and fly it around. Okay, so I guess this is kind of, we're just talking about the navigation part of what would happen on your Mobi-Glass.
Yeah, and the significance of this screen, again, it's like extraordinarily early stage, but you can actually see not only your local, solar system objects, ArcCorp, Crusader, et cetera, Stanton, Crusader, et cetera, but you can actually see other star systems, Vega, Sol, Calais, et cetera.
And
this is a more localized view to where you can actually see the trade routes within your local station. This is done on your Mobi-Glass screen as opposed to the HUD within your ship. This is for pre-plotting of your paths and stuff. And I think we've actually got an animation of this one on the next.
We do. This is the early work, and then it's, if we actually go forward. Still super early days, but and I think the idea is that the planets and everything would all be sort of more sort of hollow projected, so it would look better that way. But you'll be able to pull it when you're navigating in the ship and just determine which planet you want to go to or which waypoint you'd want to go to.
Yeah, and that's also the same interface by which, for the whole quantum travel, as well as figuring out, which missions we talked earlier about, the whole transitory missions where people are basically, sending out distress calls, et cetera. It would all show up on that map.
And then we talked about the jump points and the various looks of the jump points. So it may be better just to go forward because these are the concepts of the jump points, which you're basically traveling this wormhole between two, basically it's a sort of tear and sort of whatever you want to call it, space-time continuum that allows you to sort of go in a fold to space between two places. Quite far apart, like hundreds of thousands of light years apart. It's almost like traveling, you've seen Interstellar, they do a pretty good job of kind of the equivalency of that. And if we go, we can show kind of what it's going to look like.
Yeah, don't screw up, because you'll die.
Okay. So, and let's see it again. From the other side now. Yeah. And you'll see how the different vortexes warp in as you're going around. So those will all be things you'll have to avoid as you're flying through in the jump point.
So clearly Crash Roberts wasn't flying this.
He was not, no. Someone has to be good. Or actually paying attention to what he's flying instead of trying to talk to the audience. All right. I bet you that's less than 55 minutes, Jason. Where are we at right now?
Hey, you're doing good. You got about another 20 minutes.
See? Jason was freaking me out.
Stop freaking
Tony, you want to talk about
That's
pirates
what
for
you
20
pay me
minutes?
for, actually.
Where will we go? Hang on a second. We got some more stuff. So you want to talk about the various places we're going to be going in the early alpha of the Persistent Universe? So
Yeah.
this is Nix. Tell everyone about Nix.
Mark can talk about all the artistic aspects, but basically Nix is a more lightly regulated planet to where you would more likely be able to sell some of those goods that you'd stolen. You'll find people here that are less concerned with sticking within the letter of the law. The entire establishment exists within a large crater on an asteroid. And so, I don't want to step on your feet in regards to explaining the overall architecture.
Go ahead. It's basically a huge excavated like crater, and around the edges they've kind of...
Wasn't it originally a mining colony? And
Yes, it was. It was originally a mining colony, and they had all these machines set up, and they've been pulling stuff out of it for a while, and it kind of dried up. So they left it, and squatters came in, political activists and pirates kind of took it over and kind of made it their own and set up shop there. There's a lot of kind of like around the lip of this big crater is a lot of like blown out areas where they've kind of built in various shops and things like that, and now it's kind of a thriving pirate city, sort of. It's kind of scary, though. I mean, especially the way that the kind of direction on it is that there are definitely hallways that the electricity isn't working 100%. The lights maybe come on, come off. You may be bound in some hallway somewhere, trying to get to a main corridor, and it's a good time to get jumped. A lot of it is very industrial, like on the inside, being that it was once, an industrial operation. But now, since it's been around over, it's, there's a lot of spray paint on the walls, a lot of, scum on the floor, stuff like that.
Talk about Virgil.
Yeah, Virgil. You want to talk a little bit about Virgil?
It's only in the art stage right now, so.
Yeah, it's very early for the.
It looks cool. All right, there
Virgil
you go.
art stage.
That's what Tony and Mark
this
goes.
is like
cool.
this is like one of the earliest concepts that we have for it.
Yeah, one of my favorites is
All right, let's talk
actually
about
Helios.
Helios.
So or Helos, whatever you want to call it, is basically that's a system, and in this system is a planet that's pure water. It's a water planet, and the landing zone in this water planet is this large walled city, basically that you land on, and it's a very old city. It's got a lot of history to it. We were talking earlier about, as an art director, the thing that really makes details come alive, or is the history of a place. So this has a lot of history, and visually it's going to be interesting because you'll be inside the walls of the city and see these huge waves like crashing, over the top of these walls, which it's an interesting setup for a very interesting city. So that's coming up pretty soon. And here's one of the, if you're outside the walls, just kind of cruising around, you could see these gargantuan waves, potentially, since the whole planet is made up of waves. You have these, occasionally you'll see these volcanic activity, just kind of poking up out of the water, but these volcanoes that erupt underwater make these huge waves that, that if you go out in it, you have to navigate it, which would be scary.
I don't know. You guys, I don't know what's the same with you.
That was for you, Chris.
That was for me.
We want to know about aliens.
Well, I say Sean, but I guess there'll be aliens. But yeah, no, we definitely have. Jason put this at the end of the thing.
Some of the alien stuff that we've been talking about there's definitely civilizations and planet-side locations that have adopted some of the alien technology. So there'll be human alien hybrid definitely locations, and various things, or have flavors of it for sure. So that's something to look forward to in the future.
Is that it? There you go. All right. That's the end, right, Jason?
There's one more slide.
Oh, there's one more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we wouldn't get this far. We wouldn't be doing all this stuff without you guys, obviously. What's the one more?
Oh, snap.
And that definitely wouldn't be done without any of you guys. So, how much do we have time left? Should we take some questions?
Yeah, we've got about a little under 20 minutes left, so we can totally take a few questions.
All right.
Let's line up again.
What about pirates?
What about them?
All right, go on, Tony. Tell me about pirates.
Pirates.
There you go.
It'll be okay, Tony. You can do it.
Pirates are going to wind up being one of the more interesting, I wouldn't say character classes, since we don't really have a, as I mentioned at one of the panels earlier, the formal concept of a character class. You can be anything you want, just depending upon what your skill set is, what your, how you've outfitted your character and your ship. One of the most interesting aspects about pirates is basically they're constantly engaged in theft and smuggling, and so there are a lot of game mechanics that we're going to wind up having that are tilted towards allowing them to, surreptitiously, sneak cargo past the authorities. There are ways that, they will be able to jam I mentioned the distress, beacons that ships can send out, and so for a lot of pirates, they'll have to adopt different tactics depending upon where the cargo that they're actually assaulting is. Inside of a very secure zone, a UEE zone, they're probably going to wind up needing to jam the distress signal, the distress beacon of a ship before they actually assault it. They're going to potentially employ stealth tactics so that they could possibly board a ship before the captain actually knows what's happening. In some cases, they could actually wind up boarding a ship, ejecting the cargo, and by the time the captain actually figures out what's going on and sends out a message to the authorities, and there's a lag time before the UE forces would actually arrive to provide assistance, or other mercenaries for that fact. The pirate ship would have already tractor beamed in a good chunk of the more valuable pieces of that cargo and basically hightailed it out of there. And so one of the conversations that Chris and I were having earlier was just how far we wanted to go with all of the different means by which pirates could basically be dissuaded by players from daring to attack their ship. And one of the ways is obviously just it depends upon the cargo that that you're planning to carry. If you're carrying information, if you're carrying an individual politician or something that's particularly small, then the best way to get through heavily infested areas of pirate controlled space might be to just adopt the best ship, the fastest ship possible, so that you can just outrun them. On the other hand, if you're transporting, large quantities of, of some type of ore, then you're going to want to utilize a ship that's got a good set of armor, very strong shields, probably some weaponry. You're probably going to want to hire some very capable NPCs to man your turrets to help fend them off. Because even if you're able to get a call out to the authorities, to provide assistance, there's going to be a lag time. It's going to take a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and so you're going to need to basically be able to take a few punches before help can get there. On the other hand, you may, depending upon the cargo you're carrying and how lucrative the mission is, you may want to go on over to the TDD and wind up basically hiring a number of escort ships to go with you through these through these pirate-infested areas, such that you've essentially got your own little battle convoy. And in such cases, those guys, as the pirates come in and are basically, trying to, assault your ship, take it out, all of the guys that are protecting you would automatically swarm in to anyone that's actually targeted your ship and basically, try to take them out. Say again? What was the question? Hiring NPCs?
Perma-hire.
Oh, there's no permanent hiring. You need to pay them on a monthly basis.
I think that might be illegal anyway. Permanent hire, like we're all contracts.
They're called slaves.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing as far as the pirates goes, I mean, you talked about sort of what you do if pirates are attacking you, but I mean, pirates themselves have a bunch of tools that, on the outer edge of the galaxy, there's no law and order, you don't care so much, but the idea is that you still could essentially go and perform a heist. So, like, for instance, if you got intel that there was this shipment of gold bullion going from planet A to planet B, that's probably, you know, a fairly high value target. So at that point, you and some friends can, you know, maybe you go pay for the, you know, you got the ship. You know, there's going to be a variant of the Avenger that's a warlock that has a whole EM jamming system. But you basically have a ship that can jam all the communications, and you know, you in concert with 2 or 3 of your pirate buddies will be able to take out the ship. Now, you may not want to, like, that probably wouldn't make a lot of sense to go to all that effort to, like, attack some new player that just started in Aurora, but it definitely would make it worth your time to go after someone that's literally, you know, got some valuable shipment. And so you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to have, like, fake ship ID codes, jam stuff, take stuff that you take to, like, basically a fence or a chop shop in the outer worlds and sell it.
Some ships will have, you know, special cargo holds that are less detectable by authorities. You'll be able to mask, you know, the signatures. You know, of cargo is much easier to smuggle in and out as opposed to ships. If you're in a very secure area and you're flying through in a ship that you picked off of, you know, that you picked off of some guy, you're going to just draw constant attention from the authorities. If on the other hand, you've basically, you know, you've pilfered some cargo, as long as you maintain a sufficient level of distance, you know, from any military ships in your area, then you can probably navigate, you know, through a given system without too much trouble. We talked earlier too about how much more difficult it is to actually unload those goods. Stealing cargo, stealing ships, etc. It's really just half the battle for a pirate. The other side, of course, is where are you going to sell it? And there are some systems like Nix that we mentioned earlier that are much more willing to basically deal to allow you to, you know, sell, you know, these pilfered goods, as opposed to a Terra Prime or an ArcCorp. It's like you will not be able to go anywhere near them. You will not be able to sell anything at those types, you know, at those types of places. What this means, you know, also is that the goods that you'll wind up selling you're not going to get nearly as good a price as you would if they were actually legitimate. There is a cost to, you know, to stealing a Hornet. You're not going to get the, you know, the full retail, you know, transaction price. And so these all just become, you know, other, you know, metrics by which pirates need to you know, determine whether or not the missions that they're undertaking, the amount of, you know, damage they're going to take to their ship, the ammo they're going to expend, the cost to basically hire their own NPC crew members or possibly a player to, you know, to actually do, you know, a fantastic job of manning that, you know, that distress signal, disruptor, so that the captain can't quickly, you know, can't get a signal out to, you know, request help from authorities or from any mercenaries that are in the area that are willing to provide assistance.
Currently, no. We're not anticipating the NPCs could turn rogue and rebel. You mean, like, basically decide they're going to mutiny and take over your ship? Yeah, that's like a V3.0 feature.
We could just have them turn hostile if they're still out in space and basically you haven't paid them. They miss a check. But no.
I think that's reasonable. Are you in line? Do we have a line over there? There's no line. Yeah, we got a line over here. What do we got?
Is this working?
Yeah, I was wondering with all the details y'all got in the in-game engines for like ships and stuff, are y'all going to use those as to make movies or TV series for Star Citizen?
Okay, something about movies and TV series.
Oh, he was talking about with the level of detail we have with our engine and the ships that we make. Are we talking about making movies or TV shows with?
Okay, well, yeah, no. So well, well, first of all, we're making the game, but longer term, we probably would consider like sort of making some like in fiction linear stories based using our assets in the world. So that's the longer term plan. But we definitely think that the world is interesting enough that we would. I don't know whether it would be sort of the TV style or it would be a feature, but yeah, I mean, for us, we're creating a world that people want to like spend time in. Primarily, it's going to be playing it, interacting in it, but also I think sometimes people would want to kick back. I mean, I don't know if you guys read some of Dave Haddock's fiction when he wrote the Carl Mason piece or the Tanya Oriel or the Kid Crimson, but for me, I really liked them. They were like these really fun kind of 20s style cliffhanger pieces, and so I could definitely see that kind of stuff set in our world that you would watch. Well, we're definitely going to have sort of the tools to allow you. So those are things that we're working on. Is sort of kind of like cinematic camera tools. So I mean, it's already cool right now. You already see like a lot of times we can see people post like gameplay videos or trailers, and they've done at least as good of a job as we've done internally, and it's really awesome, especially considering we don't really have any tools for that. So those are things that we are actually focusing on, because like we've got it's a big. I mean, it's today's world. I mean, it's people. I mean, we release a version, we can like 5 minutes later go to Twitch and see people playing it and see what's happening. So we're actually fairly focused on the ability to do that in the game.
You're not in line. You're in line.
I am. Thank you. First-person combat and dogfighting is visceral and personal. But in the real world, you nuke them from orbit. So my question is this.
It's the only way to be sure.
Are there any plans for BVR combat in Star Citizen?
No. So there aren't any plans for BVR combat because it's not personal and it's not visceral. So.
Well, that's why I phrased it that way.
I mean, I don't mean to be flippant, but I mean, let's face it. Like, if we were doing a proper simulation of future space combat, you would probably never ever see your opponent. It would all be handled by computers, and they would tell you whether they won the fight or not. And it's not particularly fun.
But with countermeasures and things like that, you could defeat missiles. And in air combat today, once you've defeated the missiles, you would close to dogfighting range.
Well, we're definitely going to have, so for instance, I mean, already the missiles have a longer range than guns do in Arena Commander. So we definitely will have longer range scanning, like when we move to the full 64-bit large world setup, which we're pretty close to being able to do. When we move to that, we're going to have further scanning. So there's different levels of your radar. So like your radar in a close range can keep constant contacts and update them all the time, but the further you go out, it's more about a pulse. And so in that case, you would sort of be able to see contacts 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers out. And there may or may not be some long-range kind of missile stuff that you can do some countermeasures of, but there's not ever going to be sort of you bombing a planet from orbit or anything like that.
Can I ask a follow-up?
What's that?
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Thank you. I was thinking more in the lines of Squadron 42, if there would be any kind of a theater commander kind of situation where you would have maybe target handoff between players or the equivalent of an AWACS controlling the battlefield, those kinds of things where stealth would come into play.
Well, so less Squadron 42, but that will definitely be stuff that you'll see in the persistent universe, and you'll see prototypes in Arena Commander.
Very good.
So we already have ships. I mean, there's a certain level you've got the Hornet tracker that kind of does a bit of that, but we have some other ships that are in the pipeline that are sort of bigger versions of that. So that is kind of a gameplay focus that we're thinking that will happen in definitely the persistent universe. And there is some part of it that happens in Squadron 42, but it's a slightly different context. But generally, when we have the bigger ships like an Idris Corvette or whatever, there's going to be whole roles for people. So,
thank you.
Frigate, sorry. That's the UK guys. Every time we give them something, they make it twice as big. And it takes them twice as long to make it, too. It looks awesome, looks twice as good, but...
We've got time for about 3 more questions, roughly. So, what do we got?
Loot. Do players who don't want to go the piracy, bounty hunting, dogfighting route have an opportunity to gain weapons the same way that those who want to engage in combat do? Like, will NPC or TDD missions give cannons or missiles that pirates or bounty hunters might obtain just from salvaging?
Well, I mean, I guess it sort of depends. I mean, I think most things, like in life, are available if you pay the money. So, I mean, in general, if you've earned enough money trading or something, that you certainly would be able to go to the place where the guy makes that special weapon that beats all the other weapons, and he charges a premium for it, and you should be able to get it. I mean, in terms of like salvaging items, like maybe you come across this, rare gun, a rare alien gun from a derelict. Again, that would be sort of situational, but there's no reason why you have to win a combat to come across a derelict and salvage something. So, I mean, I actually don't think that via combat is going to be the way that you're going to be sort of salvaging a whole bunch of equipment, because generally when you're in combat, you're shooting the other person up, and maybe some of their weapons will be intact, but the odds are that you've shot their ship up pretty well. So.
Thank you.
Shot the ship.
Not shot their shit up, shot their ship up. Just to clarify. But you could have shot their shit up too. So.
Okay, hi. I was just wondering more about the interplanetary travel aspects. I've been playing some Elite Dangerous. It's they have their super cruise. It's a little bit slow. Is it going to be more like that where it's a little bit slower? Or maybe something more Battlestar Galactica where it's instant? Or something in between where it's kind of maybe more like Eve where it kind of goes really fast?
Well, I think it's going to be something, basically what we use the quantum travel for, and even the jump point, is to sort of disguise the fact that we've got a stream in the new area going to and dump out the old area coming from. So it will never be faster than what it takes to stream in the new data and dump out the old data. So, yeah. But in general, also on a gameplay manner, you need to have a certain, okay, it takes you so long to go from one side of the system to another side of the system, so you can't, it's not just sort of, I guess, I don't know how you would say it, but a kind of time lapse or something. So it's kind of hard to rate, but I would say that generally compared to Elite and the amount of time you spend in sort of the frame shift drive stuff, it would be less than that. I can't tell you about Eve because I haven't been playing that anytime recently, but it would. We've given the time of like taking, if you were at full speed, going from one side of the system to another one, 10 minutes or so. So
Thanks.
That's it.
Yeah, space is big. That's a problem.
So, I'm wondering about the sim pod, the simulation pod.
What about the sim pod?
But I'm wondering if you were thinking of adding other games to that besides Arena Commander and the FPS, like in the universe. Like maybe something.
Did you hear
so
that?
The question was,
other games
on the sim pod, will there be other games besides FPS and Arena Commander?
Yeah.
I would say there's going to be a whole lot of variations of Arena Commander. In other words, all the different mission types that we were talking about earlier, which is effectively going to make it a totally different type of game.
No, I mean, right now we're not really thinking or planning of any. I mean, basically, the sim pod allows us to essentially what we're doing with Arena Commander is prototyping stuff in space, and what we're doing in the FPS is prototyping stuff on foot. And so that's kind of what the sim pod's really doing. So it's mostly covered by FPS and Arena Commander. So I would think right now that we wouldn't necessarily have anything else that would be, although the Arena Commander modes and the FPS modes will always expand. So you'll get, I've mentioned that we're using Arena Commander as a sort of test bed for missions you would get in the persistent universe, or missions that maybe we would run in Squadron 42 in terms of the more complicated missions. And so that's kind of what Arena Commander will be sort of moving towards. You'll have more complexity than you have currently. It won't just be, okay, let's fight against some other players, or let's fight against the Vandal. And the same would probably be true of the FPS. So like we'll definitely have a mode that combines everything. So there will be a sort of, whether you want to call it an Arena Commander, an FPS mode, or a combined mode, where you'll basically have a Capture the Idris mode, where essentially you start out with your team, you got to get rid of the space defenses, get rid of the sort of anti-space guns or whatever, bring in your Redeemer, land your Marines, and take over the Idris, fight against people defending it. So those are all the kind of things that will go into those modes that we're prototyping, the kind of gameplay that we expect to have in the full game itself in the persistent universe.
So we're basically out of time. I'd like to thank everybody again for coming out. Especially want a big thank you for Chris Roberts for coming out to spend some time and talking with us. Also to Tony Zurovec for very in-depth information. And I'd like to thank Mark Skelton for his patience.
And Mark with his Osmonauts.
And also thank you for Jake Ross for helping out with moderating the panel so I could have a little break. Back there.
And thank all you for coming out, by the way. Couldn't do it without you.